Benji Aguilar. I have the honor of being this year's Booster Club president. And on behalf of the board, which I'll introduce in a couple of slides shortly, welcome to our first FRC meeting for this year. We have a lot of information to convey to you today, so let's just go ahead and get started. For tonight, quite a few things we're going to talk about. First is the auto team budget. Marty's going to go over that real quick. And then we're going to go over the practice schedule for pretty much what was this month and next month, so you know where your kids are on certain days. Competition schedule. STEM requirements for those students that are part of the STEM program, so they know what they are required to do. And a student handbook that was created by the students. It's pretty much a sort of like a guidance for them to do for their stay in STEM. And also, we're going to go over some varsity lettering requirements. Students are actually capable or have the ability to letter under Team Auto and FRC. And of course, we're going to talk about team communication. Just make sure that your student gets the information, as well as the parents find out what actually is going on, and make sure you guys have the information that you need. And so next. So for this year, the Booster Club board members are myself. We have Mr. Don Rowe, who is the vice president. And then Mr. Marty Canella, our treasurer. Ms. Tracy, our secretary. And we have Ms. Robin Chapman, member at large. And then, of course, we have Mr. Scorch, who is our coach. And Mr. Kellen Hill, there he is, back there. So we're the ones that's going to be helping lead and support Team Auto and all your students. And quite a big job for us, but we're definitely there in it for the team. So, next item is Marty's going to go over the various items in the budget this year. And Marty for...
Yeah, let's pass maybe that for that half of the room, and then we'll pass these around. Hey everybody, good evening. I'm going to pass these. You can take one, and this is just information only. I'm going to cover highlights of our budget so that you guys can get some insight into what it takes to run the club. And I've actually color-coded the sheet for the things that apply to 2018. I did leave some reference on the materials that you're getting so that you can see a comparison to 2017. But anyhow, what I thought we would do first is just break the budget right in half. Let's just talk about, from an income perspective, what we need to raise or earn as a club this year. So what I've got up on the board is just a one-pager. It's an overview of what you have in your hands. But it shows the top number, which is $82,775. That's the total budget required to run the program for the calendar year that starts in January through the end of the calendar year in December. It's a big number. So I figured what I'd do is I'd break that down to the next level, and of course you guys have more detail in your hands. But first and foremost, and I rank these just by the size of the number, the biggest number that comes in there that is money that we collect is what I'm calling competition fees. These are the checks that you guys are writing to cover your students' lodging and transportation, in some cases competition fees as entrance fees to the event. But that line in particular is money that we're getting from parents themselves. So if you do the math on what we're saying that we're collecting from parents, from our total revenue, you can see there's a large chunk of change that parents don't have to pay for. But it's very important for us to understand why that is and how that is. So I'm going to ask Kyle and Caroline to come up here and help do some explanation with me. And while they're coming up here, I want us to focus on the next two lines underneath what the parents pay, especially the sponsorships line. Kyle's going to talk a little bit about what that is. And then they're going to talk a bit about fundraising as well, but I also want them to share with you some of the sponsors that this team has acquired that is really saving you guys about 50% of what you would have to pay in a pocket for your students to be on this team. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Kyle Rowe. He is one of the student leaders on the team. He actually has the job of running the business team. Again, a bunch of students that are organizing this. Kyle's going to explain the process that we go through, and hopefully you'll talk about it as a whole year-long process that we go through. If you guys have any questions, Ask him now. I've asked Kyle to hang around also right after the meeting, so if you want to talk to him one-on-one, you can do that. But I'll just pass it off to Kyle and you can explain sponsorships.
So, Team Auto, we run primarily off of sponsorships and contributions from outside the team, being a nonprofit. So, a lot of what we do collect, as you can see by there, about half or about as much as the parents pay is in sponsorships. And so we have a very dedicated and very specific process to which we go about collecting those sponsorships. Most of our sponsors are local area, local community sponsors that work in the same general industries such as metalworking, electronics, pneumatics, and they just have a general appeal to us and they have a general interest in robotics as a whole. So usually the way we go through by getting a sponsor is we start by collecting contact information, whether it's a phone number, an email, a person to just talk to, a parent. And we start by writing up emails and just sending out just a blanket email saying, "Hi, we're Team Auto. We're your local FRC team at Forsyth Center High School, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit charity." And just introducing ourselves as a local team and just allowing them to get to know us. We then follow that up using emails and phone calls as needed to reach out to the sponsors and to get more funding. So sometimes we'll send out follow-up emails, and sometimes we'll have 3 or 4 kids here at the school on FRC practice days from 4 to 5 making cold calls from businesses to businesses asking for sponsorships because they won't respond to emails. So there's a lot of dedication going into the sponsorships, and this is a year-long effort for us. All of our sponsorships, the FRC season technically lasts from about January to roughly May-ish. But for the business team, we are 24/7, all 12 months of the year, we are running to collect sponsorships and to collect money. For example, our Autobotics camp that we ran over the summer, which 2017 was our inaugural year for that, and it helped to raise about $7,500 for the team. That was purely provided by a grant covered by one of our sponsors, XL Callan. And without that grant, we would have been able to put it on, to host it where we did, and to raise the money for the team. I was able to buy new workshop materials and new workshop machinery. But sponsorships are a huge part of how we function on Team Auto, and a huge part of how we get involved with sponsors. So a huge part of how we get sponsors is actually parents. So you guys have worked at a place where you have connections with some sort of company, I assume, and each company can be a very valuable asset to us, whether it's in terms of material, money, or mentors. I call those the 3 M's of sponsorship. Usually, that's how we can take in sponsors, and that's what we receive from them, whether it be a person such as Kellen Hill from Press Metal, or materials like Metcam providing a sheet metal, or just general monetary value items. But so, for parents, you guys are really important to us because you're probably the most direct connection to a company or a business that we have, because you are physically there and working for them, and you have a personal relationship with them. So we would really appreciate it if you were able to give us contact information, some sort of way to reach out to your companies and work out a partnership with them. Because really these sponsorships are a partnership, they're a relationship. And Caroline will talk more about relationships and how we nurture those in the second half of this. But really we want to build cohesive partnerships with our sponsors and really develop a tight STEM-oriented, FRC-oriented community here surrounding the team.
Okay. So, in order to keep all the funding here and have returning sponsors, we like to manage and upkeep our relationships with sponsors. So, what we do is we have frequent visits to local companies, such as one of our largest sponsors, Automation Direct. We've gone and visited their company several times. We've also made we've made a visit to Metcam, right? Mm-hmm. Have we done any other ones?
Last year there was Lanco that we've made some visits to, and various organizations have invited the students to bring the robot and talk as well. I know in the summer, not this past summer, but the year before that, they went to a Montessori school with the robot and played with the kids. They've done STEM nights with the robots here in this area.
So other than that, we ensure that we deliver handwritten thank you notes, which is something that I take part in. Each new sponsor that we get in, within 2 to 3 days of being notified that we're receiving money from them, I handwrite a note and then deliver it through the postal system or in person, depending on how far away they are. And we currently have 4 silver and 4 gold sponsors, and we make sure to take part in showing their brand off to the world, to the world of robotics, specifically through our robot and our shirts. So that's something we do with that. And
the pit too.
Oh yes, in the pit. So yeah. We use vinyl transfers, and we have all the logos displayed so that when photos are taken, not only does our what.
I was going to ask what the pit is.
Oh, well, the pit is just
Good question, Coach.
The pit is a workstation for the team during competitions, and each team gets their own pit. And typically, it has work tools, but we also have the display board in the background where all the logos are displayed.
So let me ask you some questions, Caroline. Would that be okay?
Yes, please.
On the board, what we have is in the sponsorships column, a budget for 2018 to raise $25,000. Again, that's money that we're collecting from organizations outside of the school and outside of you guys as parents. So how are we doing so far this year, Caroline?
We're not doing so hot. We currently, through the sponsorships, we've only raised $4,825, not including the competition entry fees waived through Automation Direct. And through fundraising, we've only actually raised $725. So we started quite late in the process, and we are cracking down and working very, very hard to make sure that we're getting sponsorship, but it is a lot harder than it was last year, and definitely a lot of work and time has been put into this.
So thank you, Caroline and Kyle. What I want to wrap up by saying is I know a lot of you guys that work for larger corporations do matching gifts. So if you were to contribute towards the team, which by the way is a tax write-off because we're a 501c3, some of your corporations will match the amount that you give. And we have parents on the team that take advantage of that. And all of that money comes right into the operation of the team. Right? It doesn't go into the things that the school's trying to do around the classroom or anything. It goes specifically into the programs, the materials that the team needs in order to run. So consider that. If you don't know if your company does that, this is my personal plea. I was going to have Caroline and Kyle even beg a little bit here. When you go to work tomorrow, or on Monday, if you're not going to work tomorrow, ask your company if there's such a thing, if you have such a thing as matching funds. The last thing I wanted to point out to you, because I think this is really eye-opening, especially for first-year parents on the team, is that the check that you guys wrote to be a member of the Booster Club covers a very small percentage of what the total revenue requirements are, right? So how did I get that far? There we go. So the budget that we have for 2018 is only $7,275. But the reason why that number is what it is because that's what we feel is the bare minimum requirement that a parent needs to support their child on the team. Right? It doesn't cover all of the expenses that the team has around transportation. You look at some of the things in parentheses over here. Lodging, things like that. That is the bare minimum just to be on the team. But it's really eye-opening. We thought real important to show you guys what the budget requirement is from an income standpoint. So I want to pause here and just answer any questions if you have them before I look at the expense side so you can see why that number is so big. Do you guys have any questions?
How many people are in the team?
Right now we have 36, I believe, is the total number. The budget, by the way, was built expecting 40 students.
Okay.
So we had to pick a number and choose a number, and we saw a certain growth occur. And we want to kind of stretch ourselves a little bit. One of the things that the business team does is recruitment. They go out and try to get more students. Obviously, with this kind of program, the more students you have, sure, your costs go up, but also your share of the costs are affected by that. So, and you'll see some of this when we talk about competition fees. It's dramatic, the increase there. Any other questions?
Last year, there were, just for comparison, there were 29 students on the team, and 2 of those were seniors. And we had 21 students return. And then I wanted to add, when I was with a corporation, my corporation had a community development officer or a community relations officer. So if your company has one of those, that's the person who gifts out money from their foundations or does their charitable giving. And those are great resources to connect Kyle and Caroline to so that they can approach them, partner with you to see if they would like to be a corporate sponsor.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the Booster Club is set up as a 501c3. We're not related to the school's nonprofit status. We are our own nonprofit status. So if you give money yourself, it is a tax write-off, and we prepare tax forms. The students help to do that. And we give them back to you, but that is also a way to maybe take advantage of some of these other programs like Tracy was talking about. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So how are we spending this money in 2018? As you can tell by what you have in your hand, there's a lot of moving parts to making this robotics team work. And we really operate like a business or an organization. And so the things that you might see on a balance sheet for a company are going to be what you see for the robotics team. Our biggest expense this year, actually, as I compiled this, was a surprise to me, but I want to talk about that a little bit, and that is meals. We have 36 teenagers that need to eat, and we pretty much keep them for most of the first quarter of the year, if not almost most of the first half of the year. We're doing things a little bit different than we did last year, so if you compared to last year what we did, we usually ask parents again for money at each competition event to pay for meals. And this year, we're not doing that. We're rolling it all up into one fee, and we're managing the meals for you guys. Some of you guys are taking advantage of the meal plan as well, and that was brand new for this year to try to get the logistics settled, but also make sure people get fed. But you put all those two together, and you end up with a pretty big portion of our budget is covering just food for feeding the team. And as you work your way down, you start to see some other expenses that are tied to the events themselves. Lodging is the next big line item. The hotel rooms and spaces that we need, not just for the students, but for the chaperones and for the coaches and anyone else that is needed to get kids to the events. Robot parts, could you believe that? It's a little more than only 10% of our budget, just for the robotics parts, right? I think when first-year parents especially come to the team and they look at how much money, they imagine a lot of that money is going towards the robot itself, and it's a good chunk of money, don't get me wrong. But in order for that robot to be assembled, in order for the kids to go compete with the robot, it takes a lot of logistics and a lot of expense to pull it off. Summer camp does have an expense on it. As Kyle had mentioned, we did our first year last year. This will be our second year. We're hoping to double what we did last year, but that means that we have expenses that we need to cover for this year. And that's about the number there. If we spend this much money and do what we did last year, we stand to make almost $16,000 in profit. That's why, and I kind of skipped over it, but I wanted to explain that first. That's why that fundraising number is at $18,000. And you're going to hear from us as the year goes on, because we really need support from parents in order to pull that off. And I'm not talking financial support, but I am talking time support in order to make that happen. We could save a lot of money with some of your support. Entrance fees is another interesting one. I won't go through the rest of these, but I do want to talk about entrance fees for a little bit. The reason why I have $15,100 in parentheses is because our sponsors pay for most of our entrance fees. We only have to pay $7,800. With sponsorship that we have already acquired for this year, we only have to pay $7,800. If this team didn't have sponsors that support sponsorship fees, our budget would go up another roughly $8,000 to cover that. Does that make sense? Through what Kyle and what Caroline were talking about, we're seeing some immediate reduction in our fees here. I do want to take a point here to just take a break and mention Automation Direct. They're one of our largest sponsors. If you've been to any of our events or seen any of the t-shirts, Rodney's got one on, but I won't ask him to take his shirt off or his jacket off to show us his shirt. But we like to keep, go ahead and stand up since you got a laptop on you. Yeah. We like to honor them at all our events because they are the biggest contributor to reducing our competition fees. Matter of fact, through the Forsyth Alliance, Automation Direct, turn around, Rodney. Through the Forsyth Alliance, Automation Direct has funded the first two competitions entrance fees and our kit of parts that we need for the robot for this year. So that's phenomenal. You'll hear a lot from us about Automation Direct. You'll certainly see them as one of our number one sponsors on the shirt. But as you can see, there's some other expenses. I've got a bunch of miscellaneous things that add up to a pretty big number, but they're all things that you would expect to see from an organization that runs like we do on the expense side. I will make a point to say that we don't try to carry money over year. We try to do what I call a zero balance budget. In other words, we budget on the revenue side what we plan to spend on the expense side, right? With that said, when we do have excess funds, then we go through an exercise of understanding what we're going to do with those funds. And last year, we were actually able to carry over a lot of excess funds. Through the work that the business team, Kyle and Caroline were talking about, we were continuing to raise money even while we're in Houston. And a lot of that money, for some of you returning parents, know that we got checks that were written back as refunds for some of your travel expenses and things like that. And that's phenomenal. And we hope that trend continues. So though Caroline was kind of down about where the number is, and the number's not where we want it to be in terms of how much we need to raise for sponsorships, just know that the students are working. And know that no matter what day of the year it is, you guys can always help us contribute towards what that's going to be. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right, any questions about this? About what you have in your hand?
Tell them typically what is the entrance fee to Gainesville or state? I mean, what are we, so they get an idea.
So Gainesville and Dalton, which are the two district events that we go to, as well as our Kid of Parts, and really what I call first fees. First is the organization that we work under. That's $5,000. That is just that fee.
Just one?
If you go to, if you, what's that?
Per event.
No, that's $5,000 for the
Just
first
those
two
two.
events.
First two.
Right. If we and when we go to the state championship, I believe that's $4,000 additional. And then when we go to the world championship, that's $5,000 additional. So it's pretty substantial fees. Just the cost of entrance to these. It doesn't pay for the cost of your robot or getting your robot there or getting your kids there or getting your toolboxes there or any of
It
that.
allows you to step through the door.
That's right.
And this
That's right.
budget assumes Worlds?
Yes. Yes, it does. And it assumes a similar experience from our sponsorships as we had last year, too.
We'll see.
Any other questions, guys? Comment? Kellen, you look like you might have something to add here. No? You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Yeah. And of course, as a member run Booster Club, we definitely need to have approval for this particular budget. So if somebody would like to do a motion to vote on the budget.
I will. I move to approve the 2018 budget as presented during this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the process is you signed in on an attendance sheet. I've highlighted over here the voting column. Find your name. If I missed you, I think most everybody initial, but if I missed you, initial. Students, this is for your parents to vote unless you've been designated a proxy. Pass this over to another parent. You'll find a column that says I vote yes, I vote no, and I abstain. And Don, I'm going to start over with you, and we'll pass it down
Okay.
over to Matt Miller.
So this will take a couple minutes, I guess, to go through. Any questions or feedback that you guys have? Certainly we can entertain those now. Like I said, Kyle, and I think Caroline's still here. She could have left. Oh, okay. They're going to be available to answer questions that you have with students.
It would be nice if Kellen or Mr. Scorch could, where are we on the timeline? Where are we on the map? How things going? You know, what's going on so far?
I think we're going to cover that as we go through the rest of
slides
this.
coming up.
Okay.
And we can keep
Oh,
moving
okay.
if you want
I'm
to.
jumping ahead.
On the next, and then come back after.
Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah. So again, yeah, feel free to ask questions. I mean, it's going to be a lot of information, especially with regards to the events and how much cost will be incurred by us, the parents. So like I said, feel free, just raise your hands. Okay, all right. So we're going to continue on while that voting goes on. So we're going to turn over to Mrs. Scorch, basically give you guys an idea of what exactly the students are going to be doing this year, as well as all the efforts and all the timelines they're going to be doing to build that robot.
All right, Dustin Scorch, for those of you who haven't met me yet, teach engineering here at the high school. We're going to talk about first the 2018 game, which is the game that was revealed to us in January that we've already started working towards what we will be competing in the state competitions and if we make it to in the world competitions as well.
Welcome to the 2018 First Robotics Competition. And this year's game, First Power Up. Two alliances of video game characters and the human operators are trapped in an arcade game. To escape, alliances use power cubes to control switches and the scale, pass power cubes through the exchange for power-ups, and ascend to face the boss. Teams may preload up to one power cube per robot. Additional power cubes are available in the power cube piles, along the fence nearest the scale, and in each alliance portal. At the start of the match, the plates of the scale and the switches are randomized. During the first 15 seconds, robots are autonomous. They work to cross their auto line and place power cubes on the switch and the scale. Alliances who successfully own their switch and have 3 robots cross the auto line will receive 1 ranking point. During the following 2-minute and 15-second teleoperated period, human operators remotely control their robots. They continue to gather power cubes to place on the scale and the switches to gain ownership for the longest time, earning points for each second of ownership. Human operators behind the Alliance Station wall collect power cubes from the exchange. They can deliver them back to the robots through the return or to their vault. In the vault, power cubes may be traded in for 3 power-ups. Alliances choose when in the match to activate each power-up to gain a temporary advantage during the match. The Force power-up gives an alliance ownership of their switch, the scale, or both. The Boost power-up increases scoring for 10 seconds for either their switch, the scale, or both. And near the end of the match, Levitate earns 1 member of the Alliance a free climb. Other Alliance members climb from their platform. If all 3 members successfully climb, the Alliance can face the boss and gain an additional ranking point. The Alliance that earns the most points wins the match and defeats the boss.
So, as you can see, a lot going on with the game this year. There are a lot of pieces that we're working to build, and I guess as an update, we're building those actual field elements, so the scale and switches and everything like that. I've been assured by the school that by February 6th, which I believe is next weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend, we will have access to the room above the gymnasium in there that they practiced in last year for us to actually construct our practice field and begin practicing. And it looks like from prototyping and everything like that, our robot is on schedule that we will actually be able to practice driving at that point as well. And right now we're about a little shy of halfway through the build season. So we're cruising along. We're making pretty good progress as far as that goes. Our January and February practice schedules, we have a team calendar that Caroline put together for us that you guys all have access to that details it. Practices are, as you know, Monday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and short of holidays or sometimes the school is rented by third parties and we have no control over. We are going to be here for almost all of those days. Our competitions this year are back-to-back, which is both a positive and a negative. March 2nd through the 4th, we will be in Gainesville. We're going to talk about the kind of the price point of those competitions here in a second, but that'll be our first competition. And then the 8th and the 10th, or the 8th through the 10th, will be in Dalton competing, and those are our 2 Peachtree events. Depending on how we place there, which we have a very good, like a sneaking suspicion that we're going to do pretty well, that will then put us into the state championship, which is the first week of April this year. And then if we do well at state, we will go to Worlds, which I don't want to quote. Houston, yeah, sorry. Houston,
That's like the weekend, I think.
18th through the 22nd, and we'll put that on the calendar as well. But that will be, those will be all the competitions we will attend during this season. And if we do well in our first 2, then we will call for state.
Also, just a reminder, we always have to say this, the state competition is during our spring break.
What if you were there?
What's that?
Is it mandatory for there?
I'm gonna talk about that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So let's go. So the STEM requirement. Let's see. Did I put this? No, it's on this one. So STEM requirement states, and I did not write the STEM requirement that was here before I got here, but now that I've actually taught a year, at the end of this year, I'll have the opportunity to change it. Is that that the student has to participate in 60% of the meetings and compete in 1 competitive event. Or 2 competitive events, I'm sorry. So if they go to Gainesville and Dalton, then they will meet their competitive requirement. If they go to Gainesville, they don't go to Dalton, but then we make it to state and they go to state, they will meet their competitive requirement. So if they go to Gainesville and Dalton and you have already made plans during spring break and can't break them, we understand that, then they will not be penalized from a STEM perspective for the season of competition for not being able to compete. Any other questions about season of competition stuff? As for the 60%, that's controlled through our time clock system here. Every time your kid comes in, they clock in. Every time they leave, they're supposed to clock out. We're still working on that part of the process. But to kind of keep track so that they have a not just only a visible thing for our program, but when we start writing scholarships and letters of recommendation, when you say, has put 574 hours into a robotics program over the last 2 years, people are like, oh, wow, that's not just a generic rounded number. As we were talking before, the students, my goal as a teacher and my goal as the coach of this team is to get the students to do physically as much of this as possible, not because I'm lazy, but that might be a little bit of it, but really because this is, the whole reason for this program is to give these kids a taste of the real world. We always say that, like, you wait till you get out into the real world, or wait till, you have to work a real job, and then you'll know that, this is it. They're organizing this team. They are raising the money for this team. They are building the robot. They have mentors and they have coaches and they have you guys as parents to help guide them, but this is it. This is them. And they either fly or they sink on their own. And I think that's a great experience for them to have. Towards that end, the students came together, and then I've added the necessary parts for the school, but they have created a student handbook. Now, the student handbook has a lot of information to cover. We're going to be posting it on the website as soon as formatting is done. They're just fixing the last few formatting things, so it should be up 48 hours, a couple days? Okay, so in there you'll find team info, so team history, stuff like that. General info about what we do, the code of conduct, how we expect them to behave here, how we expect them to behave at competitions, how we expect them to behave at sponsor events, or when we go out and do outreach programs and things like that. Safety policies for the shop and as well as outside. Those are super important for life in general. We want them to live long, happy, undamaged lives. Yeah. Team organization, that's a big one. The way we have structured our team is to give the kids the most leadership opportunities we feel is possible. Every branch of this team is led by a student leader. Every student here will have opportunities to lead in a variety of different ways. Some that means business team, cold calling, talking to sponsors, giving sponsorship presentations. Like mechanical team, it means getting your hands dirty, working with mentors, learning how to physically put a robot together. All of our students will have opportunities like that, and that will help them grow and set them apart from their peers when it comes time for colleges or jobs. Competition guidelines. The competition guidelines are there to help you understand how our competitions work. If you haven't been to one, I recommend going. They're super enjoyable. You go in, you will never be somewhere that people are more pumped up about robots. Like, it is like a sporting event, amped up a little bit more. Everyone is there, everyone is supportive, everyone wants to compete, and in a positive way. There is no negativity, no dragging other teams down, because in our competition, as you saw, you don't get to pick your alliance partners until the very end. You get paired up with everybody. So a team you're facing this round might be your friend next round. So it really does a great job of making sure that we all work as a group to try and better everybody for the sake of competition. Parent and guardian information and releases are the last part. Now, when we publish this handbook, all students will be required to read it, and actually read it, not like terms and conditions read it. Go through, read each section, make sure that they understand. I'm going to highlight a couple important sections here in a second. But all the information you should need is in the handbook. And the handbook is written by students, so that means if you as a student read through it and you find a problem or an issue, come talk to team leadership about it and we'll discuss it. It's It's a living document for that reason. At the end is a release that needs to be signed by both the student and the parent agreeing to everything in the student handbook. We just do that to make sure that you understand all the policies. It's our defense, or it's my defense, I guess I should say, if you ever get upset and you come back and want to come after me. If it's in the handbook, then I'm protected, and if it's not in the handbook, the principal will probably give you a hammer and say, go at it. So, all right, one of the important sections that I want to talk about is the varsity letter requirements. This was a lot of information. Some of this information came from the school, some of this information came from the students, some of this information came from me. It's just, we felt this was the fairest way to determine who could qualify for a varsity letter. Lettering for Team Auto means that as an individual, you have gone above and beyond the routine expectations. Team members who contribute significantly to the team's success can earn an FCHS varsity letter. Not only do they earn a varsity letter, they also earn a patch that dictates first for them to put on a letterman jacket. And then after the first year of earning a varsity letter, they can, of course, earn a chevron to go with that. The requirements are, the first two are from the school. They are school requirements. You have to be a student in good standing at FCHS and a team member with Team Auto 1746. You must have also completed at least 2 consecutive years of team membership. Both of those are mandated by the school for any sport or activity or anything like that. You have to meet those to get a letter. The rest were what the student leaders on the team felt was a fair and accurate. Before we had an hour requirement of 300 hours, and when we started doing the calculations, that meant that kids that, we did calculations and said, okay, so you're saying so-and-so did not contribute to the team. And that was unfair. So what they decided was you must attend at least 75% of in-season meetings and 50% of off-season meetings to qualify. You must attend at least 2 competitions during a season. You must distinguish yourself as a leader. Now, this one brought up a lot of debate into what the definition of a leader is, and we are all of the mind that a leader is someone who supports, whether from the front or the rear, the top or the bottom. They help this team be successful in any way that they can. So if that means that you are in the stands scouting every single match, and you don't feel that important, we use that data, and that data is going to help us pick our alliance partners at the end. Every person on this team has an opportunity to be a leader. Must volunteer at a minimum of 2 approved robotics-related events. These could include, but are not limited to, FLL or VEX tournaments, Autobotics, and elementary school STEM nights. We felt that was fair too. Also, a lot of these are going to fall under the fundraising category as well, so your kid will be making money for the team as well as crossing this off. And there are a plethora throughout the year of different events that they can volunteer at. There's no shortage of them. Last one, team coach has final discretion on who qualifies for a letter. I'd like to say that was my idea, but it wasn't quite my idea. The reason for that is there are always going to be those special situations, and we want to make sure that no one is left out because of the letter of the law when they truly deserve something. Any questions about varsity letter requirements? Yes, ma'am.
I saw some parents taking photos. We're going to place this
It's in the handbook.
PowerPoint
Oh, okay.
on the website. Give us a day to get it up there, but it should definitely be there by Monday, and especially the students. This is probably of interest to you. So you'll go to our team1746.com website and go to the boosters page where we'll have all the material from tonight's meeting housed there.
All right. Team communication, how we get information. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask for the last thing. Is it 50% of all, 75% of in-season and 50% of off-season? Is that calculated through both years or just like a year?
So it's calculated through a school year. So like this fall would count as the off-season, but then also the off-season counts after May, and there's lots of opportunity there to pick up those 50% mark. 70% really talks about the competitive season, which is January through April.
So if you're like not very active the first year, and then the next consecutive year, you're like, you meet those requirements.
Oh. So the being on the year 2 consecutive years, just say that you come in and you are part of the team just during competition season for 1 year, right? And then the following year, you meet the varsity letter requirements. It's not that you have to meet all those requirements 2 years in a row. You were on the team the first year, you met the requirements the second year, you could varsity letter. Is that kind of what you're asking? Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, I have to press the button. Team communication. The students communicate via Slack. It's a kind of like an instant messaging app that has organizational skills built into it. All students are required to be on Slack. That is the easiest way for us to get information out. That is where you will get the latest information from us. If anything is happening, we will put it out on Slack. We also put polls out. For example, right now, I think everyone in here has answered, but we've put out a Slack poll about whether or not your student plans to attend the 2 district events, so we can start calculating. We're going to talk about money here in just a second with those. So they need to check Slack regularly. I don't have it muted. Students talk to me through it pretty regularly when they have a question. I know, is Austin still here somewhere? Yeah. I know Austin hit me up, when was that, Monday?
It was last night.
Last night, yeah. He had a moment of heart palpitations because he didn't think he was going to meet a STEM requirement, but he had already rocked that. So, monthly email to students and parents. We use a MailChimp service to disseminate information. The only downside of the MailChimp's system is that it doesn't force you to read it physically. All of our information goes into those. Make sure that you are checking that, because we put a ton of information in each one of those emails down to, I'm blessed to have the Booster Club being filled with planners. And I say that I'm completely serious. Like, that helps me out in a ton. And they will put every bit of information into those MailChimp emails to keep you informed about everything. Yes, ma'am.
I'll jump in here. I'm
Go.
Tracy. I pressed send on all those emails. You're welcome, and I'm so sorry. What's wonderful about, first of all, if you are not getting emails, like last week, you have gotten 2 or 3. If you did not get them, please see me after the meeting. I could have typed in your email wrong. I pulled off all the emails from your membership applications. That's what I'm using to reach you and your student. What's wonderful about MailChimp is that it provides me a report where I can see who opened the email, Thomas Priego,
I always open them.
and who did not, shall remain nameless. So if you are checking your email and you don't see an email from Team Auto or FCHS related sender, then check your junk folder. Some of our parents, Robin Chapman, unsubscribed by accident. That can happen.
Accident.
But I will say, we get about a 30% read rate of our emails. So please open them, please read them. And when you hit reply, they go to me, and whatever the Booster Club can't answer, I send it on to Coach. But about 30% of us are opening the email, and I have no guess. I'm going to say all 30% that open it read it. But it contains all the information that you should know or need to know. And then if it's not there, please hit reply, and it'll come back to us. And as far as Slack, I've asked if I could get on Slack, but it is student only. But students, if Coach makes an announcement on Slack, please tell your parents. If Coach can't reach me, I can't send an email, and it always takes 30 minutes to an hour for me to churn one out. So if there's last minute changes, like at competitions, he's saying everybody meet at the bus or waiting now, you need to have this on your phone and you need to check it. And all those smartphones have ways to set reminders for you to check your email every day, students, and check your Slack every day, students. And again, if you aren't getting the email, see me, we'll write down your email and I'll check it tomorrow.
And then,
And also, I guess with regards to communications, I mean, for some reason, there's always an automatic disconnect between high school years and their parents. So, we're trying to figure out whether we're sending you too much information or not enough, and especially like during snow days on a practice day. Some people say, hey, are we having practice or not, or are there any after-school activities or not? I mean, we try to get the information as soon as we can and then disseminate it, but unfortunately sometimes people don't get that information and say, we had practice today, but I don't know, nobody showed up. So it's that kind of situation. So again, if you guys need to know more, especially when fees and other costs come up, and your son or if your child goes up to you and says, hey, I have a fee due today, like all of a sudden you start freaking out, like, okay. So it's those kind of things that we just definitely try to make sure that you're well aware of ahead of time. If you think that there are other ways that we can communicate with you other than saying, Mr. Scorch asking a student to make sure when you go home, tell your parents, let us know, and we'll definitely try to accommodate.
I mean, I think I speak for myself and for the Booster Club. We definitely appreciate feedback. If you know of a better way for us to do what we are doing, please enlighten us. We are always happy to work as efficiently with the least amount of actual work possible. So she walked back in, so I'm going to call her out now. Caroline set up our new team calendar, and it is available on the team website, right, Caroline?
Yes.
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 Do you want to give any info, maybe a location on the team website?
www.team746.com/calendar.
There we go. Thank you. All right. Okay. Event registration. We have a February 1st registration deadline and a February 15th payment due for both events. Now that's because we have to set up all of our stuff ahead of time. And so we'll go through. For Gainesville, that is $70. That includes food. That includes bus transportation. That includes the cost of feeding a bus driver and paying them. We have to pay bus drivers for every second they are on the clock working for us. And also the cost of a cargo van to haul our trailer there and back, unless we can, of course, find a parent to volunteer. Some of these costs could possibly go down. I am currently in the process of getting my bus license. I will be finishing that up next week. Short of me crashing a bus, I should be successful. If that happens, it's like driving a sports car, When that is successfully completed, that will deplete the cost of a bus driver. Then we just have to pay the $1.70 per mile the county charges us for a bus. I'm doing this not because I enjoy driving buses, but because I'm trying to make this as available for all students as possible. That's why I became a teacher, is to give kids this opportunity. So anything I can do to help mitigate some of that cost or make it more available, I'm going to do. This is one example. The other thing about that is the county, once I am certified to drive a bus, I get kind of the keys to the kingdom as to what bus I want to take. And there are rumors of a super bus in the county that is full size but also has a lift gate, and the back is cleared for it is designed for if we ever have a full special education school to take a full load of passengers. And so the back half has no seats. It's for wheelchairs, but it has tracking on the floor for you to strap things down. So we could actually, if this bus exists, which they've assured me it does, we could seat 40 students and transport all of our materials strapped down in the back of the bus in one go. So here, fingers crossed, yeah. That would deplete. So the $70 is what we hope is the top possible price that you would pay for Gainesville. We will hope that it will go down, and we will definitely hope that it does not go above that, and shouldn't, short of unforeseeable
What's the
things.
top price if all 36 students on the team pay to go? And so this is where next week when you get an email, students, that's where you'll need to push the registration button. If we have 20 students, you'll see the top dollar amount for that.
Yeah. So as we go down, if we have all 36, 70, when we drop down to 30, it becomes 80, 25, 85, 20, 100. If we drop below that, it continues to go up because the price is no longer offset by so many students. And unfortunately, we have to plan for all of this stuff ahead of time and rentals, like for the bus and everything like that. So it won't be like, we only have 10 kids going, cancel the bus, we'll just drive ourselves. We're bussing it up. For the Dalton competition is a ways away and requires hotel. So, once again, for Dalton, if all 36 students go, it'll be $190. That covers hotel, food, and bus transportation. The cost of the bus driver fee, hotel, and food, and cargo van rental of $500 could once again be mitigated with me getting my bus license. So I know you're all riveted, I'll keep you posted on that. But depending on the number of students who sign up to go, once again, if we have 36, it's $190. This one, it's a little bit more, like even if we drop just one student, the price starts to go up. We have $195. Getting down to 20 students becomes $300 per student. So it is important to get as many, like we understand that not everyone can go to every competition, but it is important that you guys go to as many as you can to kind of mitigate the cost for everybody. You will enjoy it, I promise. It will be something that you cherish and remember and enjoy and talk about going forward. You can ask if you are new and you want to ask any of the veteran members, they can remember every competition they've gone to because each one has great moments and that are often eternally memorized in video and pictures and random sayings and things that end up on shirts the next year. All right. Any questions about the two events?
I do want to make one clarification. For the Gainesville, just to clarify, the Gainesville is at the Riverside Military Academy, and it's actually going to be a day trip each day. So for the meals, I think it'll be lunch and
On the first day, it'll be dinner and lunch provided on a Saturday and a Sunday following. So one meal per day for the student, plus we need to feed the coach and the mentors, the team staff.
Did everyone understand what he meant by a day trip? Like we will have the bus here, you guys will meet us here, drop off your kids, they will load up on the bus, right over there, we'll go right back, and we will offload from here. Yes?
If we were closer, could we drive like our parents'
You can always, I can never tell a parent that they cannot take their child. I'm pretty sure that's against the law. So your parents are more than welcome to pick you up. They just have to fill out paperwork. But the cost won't change because we still have to pay for the bus.
Are you all going to anticipate a practice against some other schools in February or before?
Kellen?
Like to Walton or to somewhere, Grady or?
Right at the end of the last week of build season, there was usually like a week 0 is what they're usually called scrimmage event. So if the robot should be at a workable point by that time, we were ready for it last year. But I'd say last year's robot was a little more simple than this year. So it's just a matter of how ready the robot is to start playing against those teams. But the other instances that we are then planning to build a practice robot. So if there are other teams that also have practice robots that we can play with and against them in that open period.
Okay. So stay tuned, and as soon as, once again, like Tracy said, as soon as I get information, I send it out via Slack to your students and implore them to tell you, and then I send the information out and we put it into an email immediately and send it to you guys. Same thing with like the snow days and everything like that. Sitting by my phone waiting for the tweet from Forsyth County to let me know what I was allowed to do. So, of course, if we do well at both of these district competitions, we will of course send out information about the state competition and costs and everything with that, which that will be important for you guys to open up and read, because the deadline after these two competitions, if we do make it to state, will be significantly shorter because it's 3 weeks after that point. Well, man, we'll break it down even further. So, event registrations for these, we will have. Not going to sneeze. Okay. By January 29th, we're going to email students and parents. Psych myself out there. send you guys an email with a registration link that you will click, probably a Google form, where you can fill out information about everything. February 1st is the registration deadline for both events, where you have to let us know that, yes, my kid is going, or no, my kid is not going. February 5th, student invoices will be sent out. We will send out a invoice to all of you so you know exactly how much you will have to pay, and the number of students attending will determine that. February 15th will be the payment deadline, and then the 22nd through the 26th, we will email the students with event information and team schedule, so an itinerary and a breakdown of everything that will happen during the events, hour by hour. Of course, once again, I'm going to plug again, you should definitely come to the events. They are a sight to behold, and it's fun to cheer with your kids and cheer your kids on from the stands. I think that's it. That's that, right?
So does anybody have any other questions or concerns they want to talk about? So,
Ink cartridge recycling, is that up and going now? What's up with that?
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
We're trying to figure out the logistics of how we're going to collect, who we're going to collect from, and just how delivery's going to work. But it is in the works. The toner that. So what he's referencing is he's referencing something called Cartridge World. And what they do is they'll take them used up ink and toner cartridges, and you can recycle them and bring them to their facilities. And every month they'll send you a check for however much you brought in. So right now the business team is in the process of setting up a working document on how we're going to collect, how far and to what extent we're going to collect from, whether it's just going to be the robotics team, the school, the county, kind of like how far we're going to outreach with that, who's going to be the one collecting them and delivering them. It's just a matter of logistically figuring out how we can reasonably do this without putting too much strain or stress on an individual or a group. So right now it's in the works though. It is a work in progress currently.
Yes, sir.
So if you have the ink and toner cartridges that make it to the trash can, don't. Throw them in a Ziploc bag or a trash bag and have your student bring them to Kyle or Caroline, right? Would that be a good first?
Yeah.
As messy as they are, please put them in plastic bags before you give them to your kids.
Yes, ma'am.
I saw something about summer camp. Is there what activities that are doing in the summer?
Kyle, do you want to come up and talk about the Autobotics camp?
Yeah, so I really love Autobotics camp. So our summer camp is called, I've said this about 5 times now, Autobotics camp. But what it is so last year I noticed that a lot of teams in the county, at least when I was growing up in middle school and elementary school, I went to a bunch of robotics camps, I went to a bunch of STEM camps, because I really wanted to be an engineer, because my dad was one, and was like, cool, engineering. But one thing I noticed was that on our team, we didn't have a camp, we didn't do any outreach, and even though we're one of the oldest teams in the state, we are the third or fourth oldest active team in our state right now, we didn't have a robotics camp, or we didn't have any sort of outreach to the younger generations that will be coming on our team in the future years. So I and another member of my team, who no longer is with us unfortunately, on the team at least, they're still around, we decided to write up for a grant to XL Catlin, which is an insurance company up in New York that does insurance for these major refineries and huge chemical plants. Really cool stuff. So we decided to write up for a $5,000 grant just to cover some Vex IQ kits and some materials for the camps, such like snacks, little gifts to give out to kids for rewards and prizes. And so over the summer we ran a 2-week-long camp in which we had 24 elementary and middle schoolers come in. And they were able to spend a week one-on-one or two-on-one sometimes with our own students on the team who were kind of like mentors to them in a sense. And we were able to pass on knowledge about STEM and really increase STEM awareness and really grow these kids and hey, this is robotics, this is cool. We actually had a fair amount of girls come out to the camp too, so it was really awesome to see that gender diversity and see more girls getting involved, because we really love to see that on the team as well. I mean, on the team from last year to this year, I think we had 100% increase in female participation on the team, and that makes us really happy because, engineering isn't just a boys' field. It's equal play for everyone, but
There was more than one girl on the team last year. So don't judge that quickly. May have been only 2, but there was more than one.
We have increased.
It's a work in progress.
It is, but we are growing. I mean, it is a trend. But honestly, it was really cool to see these students come in, and we actually had a couple 8th graders who auditioned for Central that I was talking with last year that are going to be coming up next year as freshmen at Central that really now are invested in FRC, and they're all about Team Auto, and they're all about what we do here. And they already have a basis in robotics, in critical thinking, in iterative design processes, and how to think like an engineer and like a robotics team. So through this camp, we were able to raise roughly $7,500 of pure revenue for the team. Because most of our expenses were covered by either the school by providing us a free location to house our camp. They didn't charge us any fees or any percentages off of what we made, and also XL Callan by providing us funds for our materials. So, and with that, we were able to invest that back into the school, back into our team by getting more machinery for our workshop, upgrading some of our tools. But this year we are planning on, and we're already in the works for planning for Autobotics 2018. We're planning on doing another 2 weeks, which we'll have to work that out with the school once again. But we'll have to work that out with the school again, because what happened last year was we were able to work alongside their STEM camps in the same time, so that way the school was open and we had the facilities open to us. So it's just about coordinating with the school to get those times open. But last year we started our planning roughly April, I'd say, like late spring. This year we've already started planning. We're having discussions about how we're going to run it, who we're going to run it with, how things are going to operate this year differently, what we can do better. So last year we had 24 students, but we had a capacity for 48. This year we're hoping we're going to have even more than 48. We're going to be hoping that we can have just a limitless amount of students coming in and learning about STEM and getting really enriched and engrossed in the culture that we are trying to stimulate here in our county. So yeah, that's a basic overview, I guess. So,
And how many students, tell them how many high school students help run the camp?
So we had about 10 of our team members, and on a team of 30 last year, that's a third of our team members come in and help out by being a mentor or helping with planning or helping with designing stuff. Because this was really, to put this on in about a month or two, which is what we did last year, which was a terrible idea. It really took a lot of effort on a lot of different parts, and I gotta say, Mrs. Priego has been and was such a huge help in that process with planning and stuff done for that. But no, it was really cool to see the amount of student involvement, and actually for your students, for the lettering and varsity requirements, I'm not sure if this was said already, but Autobotics does count as part of the volunteer stuff you can do, or part of the STEM outreach that you can do, and it can also go on all of your kids' volunteer stuff, whether it's beta, NHS, everything. So it's really a cool way to get involved with the team, cool way to invest yourself in the team. It benefits you and your community, at least for your children, and helps raise money for the team. So there'll be more updates to come with that as we get more details figured out, but just, stay on the lookout for that.
Is there any age limit?
We had it from 3rd graders to 8th graders. So rising 3rd graders to rising 8th graders last year. And that was kind of our age cap. And we try to keep elementary schoolers with elementary schoolers and middle schoolers with middle schoolers, just because as much fun as it would be to team up middle schoolers against elementary schoolers and have them duke it out, we felt like that wouldn't provide as fun as an environment as it probably could. But like, if any of your children have like siblings that are really interested in robotics, or neighbors, or literally anyone,
people you just meet.
We're gonna be getting these details out pretty soon as we start working them out, and feel free to tell everyone you know, like everyone, because it's money for the team, which we need that, and it's also a really great way to provide a STEM experience for all the children as well.
And one of the things that Kyle didn't mention, which would be really interesting to parents that have a checkbook, is last year we were able to set our fees to where the students who volunteered at that event got credit towards their booster fees for the next year. And it was significant credit for some of the students because some of them participated for the full 2 weeks.
And we are working, to piggyback off that, we are working with, during the fall, we had opportunities with the Verizon Amphitheater to volunteer, and that could also pay for your fee. So we're trying to find ways to make it more accessible. Did you have a question?
The volunteer opportunities, is that something that's relayed to the students through Slack? Or like, how do they know how to get involved in that? Like,
Typically it's Slack. I know the 2 most recent opportunities were middle school VEX tournaments, and those were both relayed through Slack by Kellen Hill, which
There's one on Saturday.
there's one on Saturday. If you if you need to be working on the robot, you of course should be working on the robot, but if you are not working on the robot, It is a great way to reach out and help younger students embrace their love of STEM. Which middle school is that at, Kellen? Whitlow. They can always use more volunteers to help because, herding cats is a phrase that's tossed around a lot nowadays, but middle school robotics tournaments, it's
Pretty accurate, yeah.
But there are a lot of opportunities. Part of FIRST is community outreach, and this thing really ties into that. So there are lots of opportunities to get out there and make it better. Any other questions for me or Benji? Turn it back over to you.
All right, cool. Just to give you guys a quick update before we end to Tracy, the budget was unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Kellen can get that screwdriver he's always wanted. If there's any other questions or if you just want to come up and chat with us, feel free. Other than that, everyone, thank you very much for coming out.
All right.